First and foremost, this is just an opinion piece. Just because I disagree with people doesn't mean that they should be looked down upon or harassed. Do not harass people who appear in this video. Regardless of our opinions on these goofy guys in spandex, we can at least show respect for each other as people and keep these kinds of discussions civil. On that note, I've had enough. I've seen so many random comments and videos unfairly criticizing various aspects and versions of Miles Morales. I'm going to be very blatant. I love Miles Morales. He's my favorite Spider-Man and arguably one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. I won't pretend I don't have a multitude of bias towards this character and the various forms of media he's portrayed in. The Spider-Verse movies really solidified my love for him, and he's definitely my favorite version of Spider-Man I can relate to the most. So it boggles me when I see so many people hate on Miles for illogical and inconsistent reasons. If there's anything positive to be said about Miles, somebody has to bring up how much of a worse character he is than Peter, or how he's an unoriginal token character, or a lazy race swap clone. A lot of this comes from the vocal minority who believe the phrase, Miles Morales isn't Spider-Man, and the sentiment is shared between a few Spider-Man fans, but they will make themselves heard. Counterpoint, if Miles isn't Spider-Man because he isn't Peter Parker, neither is Miguel O'Hara or Ben Reilly or a bunch of other characters. These fan favorites are exempt from this rule because... well, I'll get back to that. This argument also damages Peter as a character. He's not supposed to be a special chosen one. This isn't Star Wars. This is why so many people, including myself, hate the Peter Parker DNA subplot in TASM 2. Peter Parker is just supposed to be a guy who's an average citizen, but took on the responsibility of being a hero because he felt he needed to. Hence the phrase, with great power comes great responsibility. At the time, Peter was the only Spider-Person around, so he made it his goal to help people after he couldn't help his Uncle Ben. It's not because he was always special or unique. He did have some important special traits that are unique to him as a person, but it's not because he's just out of this world and so different and so unique and one of a kind. He's just a person with his own talents and flaws. He faces the same struggles as the readers do, which is why he's so great. He's meant to overcome the troubles and inspire hope. Spider-Man as a concept is supposed to be relatable. That's why he wears a full-body suit, because really anybody can wear the mask. That's why I think he's the greatest superhero of all time. That's why so many other people agree with me. That's what Stan Lee taught us, and that's what Into the Spider-Verse proved to us. Saying otherwise is a fundamental misunderstanding of Spider-Man as a character. But some people will say Miles is not actually Spider-Man because of how we refer to him. Most people say he's Miles Morales instead of Spider-Man when referring to him, in or outside of the suit. This is stupid because if I say Spider-Man, most people will think of Peter Parker because he's the original Spider-Man. He's been around the longest and he's been in the most projects. But there's still a margin for error. Which version of Spider-Man do you mean? Hell, which version of Peter do you mean? When I say Spider-Man, some people will think of Spider-Man 2099, Superior Spider-Man, and Scarlet Spider-Man because they're cool and they're dope and they're cool characters and they're all Spider-Man. Even if I say Peter Parker, a lot of people will think of all the different live actions of them, like Toby and Tom and Andrew, and the cartoons as well. There's Ultimate Peter Parker and Spectacular Peter Parker, and like for example, Insomniac Peter Parker, the '90s series Peter Parker. The list goes on. Like, there's so many different versions of Spider-Man. There's so many different versions of Peter, but they all fall under the category of Spider-Man. So I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why Miles is the one that's left out, but we'll get to that. There are too many variations of the hero to count. When you mean to refer to a specific character, you will say whatever they are closely related with. Miguel O'Hara is Spider-Man, but we call him Spider-Man 2099 to differentiate him from the others, because he's a futuristic Spider-Man from the year 2099, not because he isn't Spider-Man. The same goes for Miles Morales. We call him Miles Morales, or Ultimate Spider-Man, because his recent depictions heavily emphasize who Miles is without the mask. He's a figure in which we should try to emulate by being ourselves in whatever we do. It's literally the tagline for his game. This problem isn't unique to Spider-Man either. Just because Wally West is more commonly referred to by his actual full name doesn't mean he's not the Flash. He has the powers, the ethics, and quips to prove that he is, just like Miles proves that he is Spider-Man in every other way. Unfortunately, there's a whole different section of people who don't like Miles. Subsections within subsections of Miles haters. It's crazy. I would go as far to say that they feel some kind of personal hatred towards the character, especially with how they address him. Some Miles haters will focus on a particular aspect about him that invalidates his character and his stories. His race. Miles Morales is a young Afro-Latino man, and apparently that bothers people. I see some people call him a token character or a Black Peter Parker, These claims would make sense if a huge part of his character in the stories was about being black or Hispanic or something.
Well, well, well. If it isn't Spider Monkey.
But this simply isn't true. Very few of his stories involve race as a plot point. Even the comics, which is the version most people hate on Miles for, aren't exactly heavy-handed on racial tones. At least from what I read, you guys can tell me otherwise in the comments below. And no, the racial undertones or that one stupid BLM pin in Spider-Verse doesn't equal out to anything that affects Miles as a whole character. I don't need to see Miles struggle with racism, especially if it isn't relevant to the plot of the story in which he appears in. One would expect this kind of reaction from a cheap race swap of a character, like the new Velma or the new Little Mermaid, but these kinds of creative decisions don't actually hold any substance to the story, and are usually used to cover the asses of poor writing. Because according to lazy Hollywood writers, if you criticize the minority version of the character and not the white one, that makes you racist, even if the criticism has nothing to do with race. So, obviously, Miles is far from a Peter Parker clone. There are very few things Peter and Miles have in common. The fact that they are both Spider-Man, the fact they have a good heart, and that they both struggle with balancing their hero and civilian lives. Miles' original comic run may have been bland and lacking in character, but if the only version of Miles that's apparently a race swap is from 10 years ago and is officially in the ground, we can stop applying it to the modern iterations of Miles, where they improved upon him. It's like calling modern cars a bad invention because the first car didn't have a seatbelt. It's reductive and should only be looked at from a retrospective lens. I've also noticed a trend that whenever Miles does something amazing or impressive, it's almost always downplayed. For example, during Across the Spider-Verse, Miles is able to escape the clutches of the Spider Society, and a huge organization with around 200 spider heroes that are confirmed to be members. This is an amazingly animated scene, bringing with tension and action and humor. I love it so much. However, the fact that Miles escaped rubs some fans the wrong way. How on earth did Miles escape from 200 other spider people? In the mind of a Miles hater, there's only one way he could escape this predicament. In their minds, this is a case of plot armor for Miles, and how so-and-so Spider-Man would catch Miles and whoop his ass and all that. However, I've come to make an announcement. Miles doesn't have any more plot armor than any other Spider-Man. There are a multitude of perfectly reasonable explanations as to why Miles got away. Let me break it down for you guys. First off, it needs to be abundantly clear that not everybody in the Spider Society actually chased Miles. The most telling example of this is Penny Parker. We definitely would have noticed her or her giant mech chasing Miles throughout New York. We also know that she's a member of the Spider Society because we saw her during the intervention. Let's be fair and say that she didn't want to chase Miles because he had sent her back to her universe and into the Spider-Verse and saved her life. She does, admittedly, owe him a lot. Another example is Margot. She stays behind playing with her avatar's hair. She definitely likes Miles, but has no real attachment to him and no incentive to disobey Miguel. But she simply just doesn't give chase. A really big variant we don't see during the chase is Insomniac Peter. We know he's at least in the base of the Spider Society, and that he's wearing a watch. I think it's safe to assume that he's a member, but, we can't be sure unless it's confirmed by the creators. The thing is, Insomniac Peter is known for being one of the most powerful non-cosmic versions of Spider-Man, and non-comic. He's got tons of gadgets, amazing feats, and has years of experience both as New York's only Spider-Man and cooperating with other Spider-Men, so it'd be helpful in the society. There's a reason why so many people believe Insomniac Peter should have caught Miles really, really easily, and because he probably would have. Let's be real. But I don't think Peter would chase down an alternate version of his best friend, just because Miguel told him to. We don't even know if he was still at the base when the chase started. We didn't see him during the intervention scene or during the chase. I know people think we also saw him during the pointing scene, but the Insomniac Spidey we see is chilling with the caged villains, and he looks a lot more like he called straight out of the game. He has PS5 level graphics and he's wearing the Spider-Man 2 suit. The one we see during the pointing meme is animated in the Spider-Verse style, and is wearing the suit from the first Marvel Spider-Man. I can tell that they are different because the suit from the first game has a red panel with a web design on the outside of the thigh. In the second game, his legs are fully blue. It's not unlikely that a large percentage of the Spider Society is off on other Earths, capturing anomalies, or even more likely that they are just in their home universe and aren't actually in Earth 928 to receive orders from Miguel. So while impressive, Miles didn't actually take on the whole Spider Society, likely just a portion of the people who are already at the HQ. Even then, not everyone there actually chased him. but that can be a bit of a stretch considering both Penny and Margot at least interacted with Miles before, so it feels some sort of positive emotion or attachment to him like beforehand. Secondly, Miles actually got caught a lot. Within the first 3 seconds, he gets dogpiled in midair by a bunch of different Spider-Men, but he shakes them all off. Spider-Cat catches Miles off guard and pins him to a wall before Miles can throw him away. He gets pounced on during the cafeteria scene by Spider-Monkey. Then Miles really starts to juke some of them out. When Miguel forces Miles out of the tower, Gwen catches him with a web. If she truly wanted to capture him, she had a pretty decent shot right there, but Miles cuts off the web anyways. Then, Ben gets Miles in an actual chokehold. He's literally tapping out here, mind you. They have him dead to rights. But I think Cyborg Spider-Woman shoots around, causing Ben to lose his grip, and everybody hits the ground because there's too many Spider-Men to try to attack Miles, and he's just able to slip out. That I'll give you, that was a little bit of plot armor. Then Peter B full-on yoinks him out of the chase. Peter is so experienced and goated, he even broke his own teammates' ankles. Regardless, Peter is on Miles' side, at least more than the other members of the society are. After his botched pep talk with Peter, Miguel nearly catches him again, and manages to take his day pass off. Now Miles is a lot weaker. Glitches have been shown to tire you out or disable your ability to fight effectively. During the whole train sequence, Miguel pins him down and beats him up multiple times. But Miguel is careless, letting external factors like the other cars get in the way of Miles' capture. And Miles is able to fight off Miguel and free himself multiple times, just as much as Miguel caught him. Then he finally pins down Miles, and Miles takes a long while to escape. This isn't any kind of over-the-top plot armor, this is just the logistics of the fight. The amount of spider people who usually work alone are all trying to capture one nimble and lanky Spider-Man who would normally cause them to get in each other's way, tumble all over each other, and just be less efficient. Notice how it's easier for Miguel and Just get hits on Miles when it's just the two of them? There's no risk in hitting each other with webs or getting in the way of an attack. The vast number of heroes just made it harder for them to catch Miles. It's also important to note that Miles is on the defensive, giving him a huge advantage with his Spidey sense. The Spider Sense doesn't activate offensively, only when danger is near. So Miles' senses were going crazy, giving him heightened reaction time compared to everybody else. But I promise you one thing, if it was Peter doing this, the amount of complaints would be low to none. When Peter does something amazing, it's cool, and he's showing off his real power. If it's Miles, it's plot armor and pandering and lazy writing. These are the apparent opinions of these so-called fans. I think Miles being able to escape is the perfect amount of plot armor, because every protagonist have it, and it's not always a bad thing. This is a piece of fiction, and Miles has a normal amount of both plot armor and actual plot reasons as to how he got away. I just feel as though Miles gets so much unwarranted flack when he does the same things as other Spider variants, and even more when he does something unique. It's a cycle of just, oh, he's just a cheap copy of Peter, to, yeah, that's cool, but it's nothing compared to what Peter does. I thought we all liked Spider-Man. Why can't we see one of the best versions of the characters do well and just be happy? I'm not gonna play dumb. I love Miles, and a part of the reason of why I relate to him so much is his race. It feels good to have representation, at least when it's done right. Sue me if that's bad, but if you're white and your favorite hero is white, you may not realize it, but that's one of the things that you have in common with that hero. It makes him a bit more relatable, and I don't love or relate to every black hero, it's just not who I am, but the fact that they are black is something I can understand with my own experience. It doesn't make them better or worse, it's just something that I can relate to because I know it. If this wasn't the case for different groups of people, then nobody would be complaining about Miles or Peter. You can see yourself in whoever, nothing wrong with relating to a character because of their race. Do I think every criticism towards Miles is racist or stupid? No, actually, I think some of it is really well warranted. Miles has a bad habit of using Peter's scraps. For example, two of his biggest villains right now, Spot and Prowler, are just upgraded C-listers of Peter's old rogues gallery. Even in the comics, he has a rivalry with Carnage, who is traditionally a Peter or Venom villain. He's had a Clone Saga, he's had the Venom symbiote. They were all fun twists on what Peter had, all differing levels of quality. Hell, a lot of material Miles takes from Peter works better for Miles, but he needs his own villains, his own stories, and his own struggles. Miles can be pushed forward as a character. He's already great, but we haven't seen his full potential, which makes me more and more hopeful and excited for more original Miles stories. Regardless, that's my thoughts on this. I've been thinking about this topic for a while, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me your thoughts on Miles down below. Is he your favorite Spider-Man too? Remember to like and subscribe.